I've seen other people make these balancing bottles. I thought they were cool, so I decided to build one for me. But I wanted to make mine a little bit different, so I made a lamp out of it. This project makes use of some steps that I have made other videos about. In a previous project, I cut off the bottom of a large glass bottle and used that to make a candle. Now is the time that I will be using the rest of that bottle. Before I can start adding the parts, I need to sand smooth the cut surface of the bottle. Now I'm ready to add the parts for the lamp. A light socket, a threaded post that connects to the socket, and a nut to hold the threaded post onto the lid of the bottle. In order to attach the post to the lid, I need to drill a hole into the lid. The post is 3/8 inches in diameter, so that's the size of bit that I'll use. Next, I'll test fit the parts, including putting in the light bulb. With all of the parts put together, I need to find the center of mass. I pick the bottle up with 2 fingers, one on either side, and see how it balances. I try this several times, repositioning my fingers forward and back until the bottle doesn't tip either way when I pick it up. I use a piece of tape to mark this point. It may not be the exact center of mass, but it's close enough for this project. I'm using this 3/4 inch thick pine board that I have already cut for this to demonstrate where the angle of the board needs to be cut. You can see that where this board is cut at an angle, the middle of that flat surface is perpendicular to where I marked the center of the mass for the bottle. Again, this doesn't have to be completely perfect, but reasonably close. But keep in mind, the thinner the board is that you use, the more exact it has to be. Thicker boards will give you more leniency. You can see with this one that it can be rocked back and forth a small amount, so balancing is fairly simple. I'm going to make a new one that will hold the bottle at a different angle using this 1/2 inch thick oak board. I start by making a mark down from the end about 3 inches and another mark centered on the width of the board. The distance from the end is just for personal preference, depending on how you would like it to look. I'm using a hole saw that is slightly larger than the neck of my bottle, but first I'll be drilling a 1/4 inch hole to guide my bit. On the previous board, I drilled the hole straight in, but on this one I'm going to drill it about 45 degrees. After drilling the hole, I put the bottle into it and position it and the board at the angle that I want it to balance. I use the grid on my work mat to help me align everything. This vertical line that I'm drawing is lined up with the center of mass for my lamp. I draw this horizontal line through the middle of the vertical line. This will be where I cut the board. I used a straight edge of my square to make sure the line is straight. I extend that line along each of the sides of the board, using my square to make sure the line goes straight across. This will help me make sure I'm cutting it straight. You can cut this with a handsaw, but I'll be using my jigsaw, set to the same angle as the mark that I drew. Now that it's cut, I test it out. Something is wrong because it won't balance. It keeps tipping to the left. I double check the center of balance of the lamp, but that still looks good. Looking in from the side, the center of balance is still aligned correctly with my mark. I happen to notice that part of the bottle is resting on the board. This is where things are being thrown off of balance. To adjust for that, I cut off a bit more, just estimating about 1/4 inch more to remove. It still didn't balance, so I cut off another 1/4 inch. Now that it balances, I'm going to cut a little bit off of the top, just for appearances. From the back side of the board, I measure the distance from the side edge of the board to the edge of the hole. I make a mark above the hole at that same distance. Then I cut that portion off of the top. Another balance test, and it's balancing perfectly. Next, I'll take all of the parts apart so that I can attach the cord for the lamp. I take apart the light socket, which is held together with one screw from the inside of the socket. Then I feed the cord through all of the parts, one by one. Now it's time to connect the wires to the lamp socket. On this plug, one prong is wider than the other one. When plugged into an outlet, this wider prong is on the neutral wire, and the more narrow prong is on the hot wire. In the light socket, the two screws that I connect these wires to are different colors. The neutral wire needs to connect to the silver colored screw, and the hot wire needs to connect to the brass screw. I bend the end of each wire so that it wraps around the screw clockwise. This helps it to grab better as I tighten the screw down. I put all of these parts back together. Now I can pass the cord through the hole in the board, balance the bottle, then plug it in. Now I want to show another option. When I was at the hardware store looking at boards, I saw a 2" by 2" piece of redwood that was already cut at 45 degrees on each end. I cut off these ends and glued them together side by side. I aligned this with the previous piece to mark where the hole needs to be drilled. I placed it front side down on the newer piece and traced out the hole. Then I used the same steps as before to drill out the hole. After drilling out the hole, I test it with the lamp. It balances well, so now I'm going to show a couple of things about this design. First, I measure the distance from the bottom to where I drilled the hole, which turns out to be about 6 inches. The next thing is the base. Although you do want the center of the mass of the bottle to be above the middle of the base, you can actually carve out the middle and give it some feet. This actually helps it to balance a little bit easier because it doesn't have the full bottom to rock back and forth on as easily. The final thing that I wanted to show is this. The neck of this bottle is a bit short compared to the thickness of this wood. This could result in the lamp coming out of the opening. To address this issue, I'm going to add this 1/4 inch dowel to help support the bottle in place. I drill a hole in the center of the top all the way through into the hole. The dowel can slide in snugly, so now I put the bottle back into place to see how well it works. I want the dowel to go into the gap between this glass ridge and the lid so that it catches. After testing it, I see that this is working. I remove the dowel, add a bit of glue, then reinsert the dowel. I know this isn't a perfect way to glue the dowel into place, but it will be more than effective for this project. I position the dowel as far down as it can go and still allow me to remove the bottle. After the glue dries, I'm going to cut off this excess dowel. But before the glue dries, I wipe away the excess glue with a damp paper towel. And finally, I leave it to dry. That's all that I've done for now. I want to make some decorative modifications to each of these stands. Any comments on how I can improve their appearances would be greatly appreciated, so please leave a comment on what would be awesome ways that I can finish each of these.